These song spirits are our companions first, right? I mean, of course, they come in and through us oftentimes as exact fingerprint code medicine bundles for what we need at that moment in time.
The role of some artists is to just bring what's inside outside, be a reflector of the moment, of the time, so that we have creative documentation and people can like see themselves. There's a lot of energy coursing through. That's when the involuntary sound matches that. Vitality in response to trauma or grief that's finally releasing, or eros and the ecstatic, and like that those are the moments.
Welcome, family. We are back with episode 2 of Life in the Band of Light. I'm your host, Elijah Ray. It's an honor to be present with my beloved sister, an incredible, spirited co-creator, muse, songwriter, poetess, and creatrix. There's so many things I want to share about today's guest. It's funny to call her a guest because she's like an eternal guest in my heart. It's more like I feel like I'm getting to be with my musical family today. So I just want to welcome Marya Stark to the conversation.
Thank you so much. So wonderful to be here, everyone, and Elijah, and just turning on the Band of Light mojo.
Oh, yeah.
Hallelujah.
Let's go. I want, Marya, there's literally like pages I have bookmarked in my heart to share about you, but I have a feeling quite a few people who are listening to this podcast right now have either heard of you, or even if they didn't know it, have felt a ripple of your artistry. And I just want to honor this one little paragraph from your bio that I found to be particularly profound, because it speaks to, you know, when both of us are artists, and it's like, I go on shows and they're like, okay, send us your bio. And I didn't even ask you. I was just kind of gathering some materials today and checking all of your artistry out again, immersing myself in your songs and your words and your stories. And I just found this to be the most Marya-esque bio of all time. And listen to this, friends. This is just a little glimpse of her realm. Giving life to mystic worlds within stories, dances, and universes born of the heart. Marya Stark creates from someplace profound. She makes the invisible visible. And that's very true. Carrier of myth, mystery, and medicine songs. Sometimes melodies manifest from spaces esoteric, others through the untold intimacies of a messy interpersonal relationship. Marya Stark understands and communicates archetypal voices, assigning them their own personalities in her songs. She sings hymns for nature guardians, serenading the great mythic heroes that live inside our collective memory. That is what I'm talking about.
That's fun. I'm like, where did that come from? I think my homie wrote that.
I got that off the interwebs, and I'm sticking to it because when I read that, I'm like, that is exactly my sister. So, friends, if you don't know Marya Stark, please warmly welcome her in this moment. And Mar, how are you feeling? What's alive for you? What's going on?
Well, I'm feeling very warm. It's spring here, but at the time that we're recording this, it's spring in Grass Valley, California, and outside is a forest of freshly regrown, bright green oak leaves forming an incredible canopy over our creek. And it's just been days in the studio, which have been a happy place. And as you know, being in the studio, even when I'm working on one thing in the studio, I'm connected to every single thing that I want to work on in the studio.
Yes. Right. Right. So it's like the indigenous, every time they would light a fire, it would be connected to every fire that's ever been lit. Do you feel like that when you approach your art? It's like all of a sudden you're back in the same conversation you've always been having and always will have. and all the songs and everything you've ever created is present, just watching as you kind of tend the garden of your art. Do you feel like that?
I do. It's like that tone home. Like you sing one tone, and with enough attention, you can connect to every moment you've been present inside the note. And I
Yes.
can also feel like it's that, like it's deeply satisfying, and then you're touching this, for me, this edge of like, it's the beloved, right? Like it's the edge of longing that can never be fully satisfied, but it's, we're right here and there's nowhere to go. Like this is it. And yet there's that feeling, and that's what's driving the whole thing. And
That's right. Always ever returning to the place we never left, and we'll never quite get there. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, to be an artist.
Uh-huh.
Um,
So that's
Mario,
deeply satisfying.
it is. It's like that's where we want to be. That's the sweet spot. It's the two, for those surfers out there. It's like that is the place we want to be, and we're always trying to get back to, but we never really left. It's actually what's always happening,
Mm.
if that makes sense. What is actually being targeted to the artists from the algorithm, because artists shape consciousness and shape reality, and throughout time and history, like artists stand up and then people listen. So then there must be quite a concerted effort to shape the minds of the artists as culture shapers. And that's a very profound question you asked. I love that.
Yeah, I've just been watching, like, and everyone's got the thing that they're selling, and all like everyone's got their niche workshop on how to train artists to be better artists,
Yeah.
and it's wild to watch that, and both receive the authentic blessing of the hearts of the people that were coming with their mandate,
Yep.
and touching the people they're touching with that, and inspiring and activating, and being a home for the people that it's right for them, and then watching like, wow, is that a home for me? Does it have to be? What if it's not? What if it's contrarian to what my mandates actually are? And having to be precise in discerning what the mandate is, and
Oh,
discarding all of the lesser goals.
yes. Keeping our eye on the prize. Super. What is the prize? I wonder.
What is the prize? I got to chat with someone today who one of my songs, Voice of My Womb, happened to touch them. 7 years ago, it came into their life at a time where they were in a big transition. And she got to tell me in person the meaning of that. And I was like, oh, yeah, these songs that come through in a moment, and I'm in devotion to documenting them and putting them out there. And I released that song 7 years ago, and I don't have uh, I have a strong relationship with it because it's brought so many things into my life as a world builder, and how songs will do that. Certain poems will become cornerstones of the mansion of artistry of my life. And that one happens to be one of those songs, but I forget about it. It's just like, oh yeah, this thing. I'm like my little internal director. It's like, and it's like she's just managing the whole situation, and then every once in a while I get someone being like, yo, this thing that brought through had an impact on me as a human being, and I got to go through an alchemical threshold, and I had your song as a companion. I'm like, oh yeah, music as a companion for the human heart, and to like hold hands with someone when they're going through a moment of whatever. And how many songs have come into my life as companions and have held my heart and reminded me that I'm not totally alone in my experience, even though there's a blessing to return to the aloneness sometimes, but that there's also this conjunctive, beautiful, connective power that music can do. And so for me, that continues to be, I have to return to that at the center, because you can forget, the what is it, the like that mental wavelength that you have to get on in order to manage the logistical aspects of the realm, that sometimes I can really forget, the holistic, beautiful, timeless, soulful potency of why that it's being utilized in a logistical way in the first place.
Yes. Yeah, well said, Mark. That is the North Star. because in a way, these song spirits there are companions first, right? I mean, of course, they come in and through us oftentimes as exact fingerprint code medicine bundles for what we need at that moment in time. And the fact that they get to be shared and then become companions for anyone else is like bonus ripple effect, kind of like secondary, purpose. But at the same time, those two switch off sometimes. Like sometimes the purpose really is, and I can feel in my own journey the, orientation to, oh, I'm being in service to music for the collective, or I'm being in service to music as the muse that I just will eternally dance with. It's not really for me. It's like I have to do it. It's just like my soul's deepest love is to do that. And yet, if we look closely, oftentimes the lyrics, the codes, the keys, the melodies that come through over the years are exactly what we need. And then we kind of lay them on the altar and keep going to find what we need next. And the fact that somebody else finds that jewel on the altar is like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed for this moment. It's always a wonderful reminder that that thing is working. Like God is that good, and Source is that great that it can orchestrate not only inclusiveness, that we are included in our own heart healing, but it's perfectly timed. Whenever somebody finds that song, is exactly when they needed it.
Okay, here, this brings up a really interesting quandary for me. So, okay, I agree wholeheartedly with all of that. And it reminds me of 90% of the songs I wrote, I might only write in I'll sing it once or twice. And then it's like, it did the thing,
Yeah, we did the thing. It's done.
It did its thing for me. It created some kind of, writing those lines wove some part of me whole. And music creation as process is so powerful that way. And most of the my process has been that way.
Yeah.
Okay. And because it's this first person relationship that I'm having with myself and with the aliveness of the moment that I'm in my human experience, and with the sacred other, where, the sacred thou. But in those moments, there's usually not the witness of the second person relationship. And so I want to just lay something on the table, because I'm fascinated with this right now in my life. The first person relationship with the muse, the third person relationship with the muse, the me, and then the thou, and then the second person relationship with the muse, where it's the listener,
yes,
the witness, and that what happens when someone else is in the room listening, having the feedback loop, the experience of that. And then what happens to the artists when they're conjuring for that listenership? Rather, do they tap into something different, unique, magical for the collective? Do they lose contact with telling the honest truth for themselves? And are they not willing to take as deep of risks or be weird or experimental because they're thinking about the other person? I'm curious about that spectrum and what you think about that.
Yeah, that's a juicy realm, because it's so nuanced, and there's a lot of a lot of layers of it dovetail into other layers. Whereas even if there's not a listener in the room, I could be in the studio like I was the other day, recording vocals for a track that'll probably drop sometime 2 years down the road. But put, another cool jam just started coming through. I wrote this melody, I started recording it, and I had this future memory of singing it in front of an audience while I was recording it. Does that almost echolocation of awareness orientation while it's coming through in that moment? What it did for me is it stabilized where I was and helped me sing bigger. In that moment, that's what it did for me. That awareness did that for me. In other moments, singing your freshly created song in at a festival or in an open mic or something where there's an audience and everyone's like, okay, they're staring, and it's like, okay, that awareness can be helpful. And sometimes it's not helpful to be with a freshly written piece, but other times it will help birth the song, because now there's something greater than just myself. It's like, okay, for the sake of everyone listening, I want to create this beauty. And that can sometimes pull me out of my little cave, of, half finished melody to all of a sudden bringing it all the way to mastery because there's people listening. So I think it can do a lot of different things depending on where we're at and how we're accessing art. But I think it's one of the oldest, like when you asked the question, I was like brought to like playwrights writing plays that don't really fully get fulfilled until there's an audience. And then there's like Shakespeare, like you can read it, but you have to be there and feel the interaction of how those words affect, and then the gasps from the audience become a part of this craft, And so in a way, as songwriters and muses, we are, it's kind of like a very bard quality that you carry. And I'm instantly connected to that part of myself when you're speaking about that realm of what role does the first, second, and third person play. And I think they all play a role as we're tending to the song. And it's just kind of like, I don't think there's any need to even pedestal spring or summer or winter or fall. It's just like each one has a unique way of bringing us into connection with this story arc of what it is to be an artist and what it is to be a creator. So I feel like the audience certainly plays a role. And there's like the Rick Rubin, interview that was out there. It's like, yeah, it's, it's all for you. And it's like, don't even think about the audience. You if you're creating for your audience, you've lost touch with the art. And it's like, but then, Jacob Collier kind of came back and snapped, kind of in a way like mirrored something about that interview that actually I find the greatest joy in creating for the audience and with the audience. So it's like, what is any one way better, right, wrong? I think they all lead us to different ways of playing with art. And so in a way, it's like, what's most nourishing? There was periods of time where I was just carrying the band of light and there was not really an Elijah to be found. It was just like, this is just about how many collective experiences I can get generating, because that's what I'm learning from, is this collective experience of co-creation. And then I've kind of, I think in recent years, entered a more, bit more of like singular experience of like, where is my voice and who am I as an artist? And what do I even want to say that's going to bring me closer to God, or, feel more connected to myself and to the earth. And so, yeah, that's a wandering answer, but it's a fun realm to be in, because to me, I can access truth in any of those layers.
Yeah. And there's like blessings in all of them. I think, it's been fun for me to, like, I was talking about this in connection with a performer who's a somatic performer. Amazing. And we were talking about our personal practice, and like when I'm alone.
Yeah.
And I go into an altered state of making sound, and I'm not being witnessed by anyone. There are ways that I will totally stretch and go and surrender and make really interesting sounds.
Yeah, totally.
And that as soon as that there's a person there, what I noticed for myself when I would, like, if I'm doing the practice in front of them, there's something else that happens.
Totally.
There's like, if I'm doing it as a performer, like something will happen. Like I might sing the song in a way that I've never sung it before, like really bloom it in this other way. But in this other way, I might actually be crystallized, like wherever my edge was, like that crystallizes suddenly in the presence of another person or thinking about the other. But when I'm alone, I go into this more I'm formless space. And as a songwriter, when I'm writing for myself and not thinking at all about how it's going to sound to other people, I can tell that I'm willing to be more courageous and unhinged
raw.
and raw. Yeah, and that as soon as I'm thinking about another person, my these other person like strategies of what is it like I'm trying to uplift them, like all of this agenda, which isn't right or wrong or good or bad, but there is like a focused intent and agenda that comes in. Oh, I want them to feel good. Oh, I want to organize a prayer to work through something, which can be really useful. I mean, as a music therapist, I was writing songs all the time with the intent of working with people who were dying, giving birth, working with children, learning a specific skill, working with women. I mean, so much of my music was specifically thinking about women in womb spaces and writing music for exercises of shadow integration in those spaces. Like it was a
Yes.
very deliberate space, and I got to contact raw spaces, but it wasn't deeply intimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's this piece around like having the space to be like deeply intimate without thinking about the other. And then what is it? Then I have more range inside myself to draw from when I'm focusing it for other.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm working in my own artistry of just what is like of dissolving the boundaries of those things.
Mm.
What is it like to have even more capacity to invite the listener into my writing process without choking off the way that my spirit really wants to soar.
Amen. Well said. It's a work in progress, isn't it? Too, because if we're thinking, we're stinking. And so if we're thinking about anything else other than being in the stream of the song, of the moment, of the now, come what may, like you said, if there's a layer of intention, it's like agenda could be another word for that, could be an intention, like and even like an intention that has so much inertia over our whole life. Like, oh, when I show up for this, my kind of like crystallized intention is to sound really good, or to make people feel good, or to kind of be as polished as I can. I think all artists have that thing. Like we want to present our excellence, but there's this beauty to watching artists. And I think this will be our transition to actually start. And I'll do a little intro and then we'll keep sharing. But your art speaks to me in that way. The way that you constantly reinvent, show up, push yourself out there, and it's almost like you're unfolding from the inside out more and more and more layers of your vulnerable heart. And it's exquisite, Mar, because I think the more of that, please, like more of that is what gives the listener an invitation to touch something in their inmost self that's raw and real. And it's in a way like if all we're presented with is polished, it kind of like as a listener entrains us to like, well, wow, I'm not polished, so I guess I don't really have a voice yet, but I'm like gonna pedestal and be in awe of this like art that I'm seeing and witnessing. But like something about the artists that have this way to just, they're great, but they are not afraid to just freaking tear something in the process. And in that tearing is this like, oh my God, that's me too. And like I feel that too. And there's an invitation to be so real. And I just, I want to maybe pause there and let that be a leaping off point for this conversation and this podcast, because this is my prayer with this podcast, is to be so fucking real and to get out of the way and to let something that is not preconceived or overly polished happen, but just invite a connection to, for the listener through us, through our just awe of our journey and our devotion to the path of sound. Like I'm really excited to share more of you and more of this unique spark that we both share in our kind of like journey with art itself. And so my intention today is that the tone home center core resonance beacon of this bandwidth of this conversation ripples out and invites more realness, more truth, more connection, more more of what is really needed right now, which is authenticity and authority in our role as artists and artists of this current and future age. So I say yes to that. And I wonder, what are you saying yes to? I'd love to just hear your intent today.
Thank you. My intention today to come is to enter into this beautiful creative playground that we share and lift some veils and get in touch with the pulse. That's my intention. And like you said, this like let things unfurl from the inside. And as always, recommit and reconnect to the role of the art to be like it's a type of devotion and practice of alchemy, of soul, of love, of heart, and of becoming. And so I enter into this space to be in that practice with you and in conversation and collaboration, and to get to just be in my practice as an artist, going in like what's going on.
Yes. Oh. So it is.
Mm.
Yeah, let's do 3-tone homes. Why don't you lead us, Mark?
All right. Well, finding that beautiful seat beneath and feeling the back of your body. Taking a deep breath in and exhaling a little bit. And calling a tone to the center of the heart, a tone to call our spirit home to this moment, to the throne of our compassionate heart, taking that deep breath in together. Second time all together, deep breath in.
Beautiful. Thank you. Marya, you are one of my favorite artists on the planet. And the reason for that is I'm not gonna fluff you up. I'm just gonna be real with you. And that's what we were just speaking about before we started, was what an invitation this is for us to get into the space of the Band of Light, have a conversation, and be real and invoke something really meaningful and bring the listener a little bit closer to their inmost self. So if you're listening to this conversation, I'm just letting you in on the behind the scenes. That's what Marya and I were speaking about before we started this podcast. And there's this thing that's happening on the world, and this is going to get to, my reflection for you. It's like there's this thing that's happening, right? And okay, all of a sudden we've gone from zero to hero with social media. All of a sudden, like you said, this algorithm demon is like whipping everyone's brains into submission to try to be something and show up in a certain way and post at certain times and even talk in certain ways when we get online. And it's just this weird thing that's happening to a lot of artists, where we're kind of noticing this conforming into this system of how it we think it should be because that's what everyone else is doing, or that's how artists are told they should be. And what I really appreciate about you, Marya, is your constant striving, sometimes through a messy place in yourself, in your writing, in your exploration, to get and like deliver something that is so pure and beautiful and golden and hits my heart when I hear your songs, your music, your words. Like it's like hearing, a bubbling brook in some fairy tale stream. It's like it has some deep mythic memory for me when you sing and share your art. And that's like the most authentic way I could express how your songs hit me as an artist and as a listener. And I remember, musing about your songwriting with other artists along the way and on tours, and we bump into each other across the road many times over the years. And there's just something so profoundly unique and beautiful and kind of out of time about you how you approach art. It's almost like we could be in the Renaissance period. We could be in, some future memory after civilization collapsed, and like your songs would really fit that moment. Your songs would really fit like the bardic, heady times of Shakespeare and all kinds of mythic lore. And yet here you are, it's 2025. You're just like, yep, I'm just going to go ahead and sing the songs of my womb and just try to bring something authentic and real to this planet. And I just want to ask, like, how does that feel to kind of do your best to wrangle these timelines of the ways that art and earth and nature and feminine beauty and also just the grit of your soul are all seeking to express themselves and land in people's hearts in 2025? Because this is a big conversation. Like,
Yeah.
it's wild out there, So how are you doing in your journey? And could you just speak to some of those mirrors I just held up, to any of them that you feel comfortable sharing? I'd love to hear.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for all of those kind reflections. It's such a joy to receive them from you. For those people listening, you're also one of my favorite artists, and like in like the influence you've had on me as a singer and as like a how I rest into sound is really hard to describe. And I could just talk about that probably for the rest of the podcast, but I want to say thank you. So it's always fun to be in a true meeting of depth and alchemy and archetypal like remembrance with you. And it's such a beautiful place to get to imagine from together and discourse.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, my sense of being in 2025. I've been thinking a lot about this lately, actually, about time.
I feel that.
And like I had some recent epiphany around time, around having like having almost like memory fragments come over the years, whether from other lives or collective. I don't even think it's me personally. Maybe, maybe my spirit in the diffuse way of being connected to other timelines, and maybe very specifically my other lives and specific lives. Who knows, but like whatever, wherever I have felt for a long time that part of my path has been to stand in the open field of a stream of consciousness and be aware of where there are places that have been fragmented in the collective psyche and story. And then songs have come from there just as a way for me to reconnect to those places, to, I'm going to say, relocate myself. I think that, we talk a lot about in energy healing processes of soul retrieval, right? Well, what does that mean? And being being locatable. You and I have talked a lot about being locatable in this present moment.
Yeah.
And so being at the center of the diamond of my experience and having all of these fractal doors. Sometimes I feel like when I'm writing songs, I'm sitting at the center of a kaleidoscope and I feel an emotional memory of some part of the collective psyche that is wanting to return in this moment, and we're interacting as in a return cycle, and it's drawing from my own access to my emotional content and memory and human experience, and then it's accessing levels deeper than that of collective psyche, whatever I've have available to be tuned into at that moment. It's usually a blessing that it happens at all, but there is this like kaleidoscopic moment, and then all of a sudden I'm just on that ride until we're in the antennas up. That song being fragment of the story is like almost portaling through me and then comes forward, and it's like this like light being, and then that's a song, and like there it went, and it lives. It's some of them I hold on to and I like play on shows, and we're doing these together, and everyone sings along, and like those create a type of, you know, I would say like a lattice of energy and intention, and they're useful. And some of those songs I never see again. You know, they're like, I have a relic of them where I wrote the words down, but I'm like, I can't get inside of them again. I could probably wrangle them back, but maybe they're not meant for that. But what it's like for me is making space to let the dial turn, and be aware that it's happening, and know that I'm in this surrendered process to be in collaboration with the muse of the moment in this deep collective soul retrieval process, in relocating parts of fragments of my own consciousness, and that the songs are there as part of this like medicinal process.
Wow. Wow, Mar. I love the way you are in relationship with your art, your heart. It's so clear to me, you know, and we share this very much so. This relationship to songs as spirits or as beings, as living, they have a heartbeat, right? So for all those who are listening, you know, maybe this is new for you, but it's an interesting thing to try on in your consciousness. It's just the fact that, you know, every work of art or a great song has a heartbeat to it, and it has to, because look at what it does to the world. It affects people, consciousness. Revolutions have started from songs, right? And so in a way, the way that you're describing certain songs that are very they're very chatty, they're very, you know, their role as spirits is to connect to a lot of people, and it's like everyone sing along, and it's like I imagine this like very warm, kind of sociable, open spirit in those songs, whereas some songs are just like a stranger that you just met and you'll never see them again. And I have probably 500 of those songs in my storybooks or my vault or on my computer, songs that I've never finished. Maybe I never will. Maybe they were just for me for that moment, and there was a meeting and something needed to be shared. And yet, as we were talking a little earlier, before we got started here, I'd love for you to just speak to a little bit, what is that relationship like for you, of which songs, you know, like who decides which ones get sung and not? And is there any margin for error there, where perhaps there's some of those passing stranger songs that are just kind of, oh yeah, that was just a little thing? Because sometimes those end up being the best ones, right? Sometimes those are like the ones that people are like, oh my God, that one. And you're like, oh, that's just this little song I wrote. And you're like putting all this energy and spending thousands of dollars on production for this other one that may or may not connect with people as much. So
Sure.
I'm just curious if you've experienced that and what you're tracking there.
Really intense, because I don't know that there's a right or wrong. There are so many songs that haven't yet been shared or documented or released that that are still bugging me 15 years later. You know, they're like, hello, like,
My turn.
And then there's songs that pop through, and I was like, really, I'm recording that one, and it's just like I'm doing it. This is what I'm doing right now, and it's almost like yeah, I don't know, because song culture, like as you say, I think a lot of songwriters have this experience of the other realm,
Yeah.
of this invisible third, of the synchro mysteries, of the presence of an energy outside of themselves, and this relational thing that's happening that's participatory. I'm participating in it, but that
Mhm.
there is a spark, there is the sparkle of magic that is in the room, and then it's like brr. Like
Mhm.
I describe it in a certain way, other people describe it in other ways, but I've come to think about it as song culture. Like I think you've
Yes.
talked about this. We've talked about like horse culture, like people who hang out with horses become familiar with horse culture. Like there's a type of culture that horses have with themselves and in the relationship with humans, where like when you spend time with them, you're part of horse culture. Same with
Oh,
my cat, you know, my have the, like there's a type of culture that she and I like we have that is specific to this type of being, and it's the same with songs.
mhm.
It feels this way, and so it is complex because I don't always know if I'm right recording the right songs. It's like I make a decision in the moment and then you just have to fucking commit to it. And
Yeah.
there's something in the committing to it and you're just like, all right, here we go. And then like that happened and they're all, I mean, for me, and I imagine it's like this for you. I have collections of songs that they form affinity groups with each other, and
Yes.
they are like we're gonna be a bundle. And then sometimes when I'm like okay, it's and they're all like pestering me. They're like, when's it my turn? When's it my turn? And then like a new thing will come to the center. They're like, excuse me. And some of those they fade away. They've formed their affinity group and then they're off somewhere. They flipped into the other valence with the other Maria that could just handle them, you know.
That's right.
Oh,
Like Mario on another timeline is dropping that album, and I'll have
totally.
to
And I'm
for
just
that
like,
one.
yeah, like go feed that timeline. But so like I have to just relate with the I have to trust my instincts that there's no right or wrong. There's probably going to be gifts of and losses along the way, and to not take it too seriously, but also like I'm getting more serious about writing and listening and like really feeling into what's important and also not being so committed to the things that I think are awesome that I get in the way of some new shit coming through, you know? And
Mhm.
like I just
Yep.
made a song the other day that blew my mind and I had no plan on writing it. It just popped through and now I'm like pushing it to be my like a release that's coming way before everything else. I'm like, that's
Yeah. Just
interesting.
cut
Like
the
it's
line.
just like it's
Yeah.
cutting the line. And and it's like
Which is an
release.
interesting
Yeah.
play on words too, huh? Because in a way, these lines are almost tracks that we get on, and
Uh-huh.
like, okay, like because maybe it was true 5 years ago for that collection of songs that spoke for this thing that you were healing through, or that the collective was going through something. And we speak about this all the time. Just since 2020, the cultural playground of what it is to release and create and tour and be an artist, like our whole very lives are in a way bringing audiences together. And that kind of got, pretty screwed up in 2020 in a big way. There was a pattern reset there for all of us. So it is interesting that in a way, cutting the line also speaks to snipping these threads or pathways or tracks that we're on. And
Mhm.
sometimes a new song will just cut the line and be like, no, here's a pattern reset, brand new, like brand new timeline opening up in a way,
Mhm.
right? So songs can be portals in that way too. Anyway, didn't mean to cut you off. I just
No, but it makes sense, and this kind of comes back to like being connected to other timelines
Mhm.
and feeling like that has been a big part of my work is like, oh, this reclamation of these things. But then that can like, at what point does it feel like, wait, like I've recently been like, well, what about now? What's the now timeline, and what's the future look like? I actually hardly think about the future, and I hardly think about in terms of what is the realm going to feel like and be like and experience. And I had just an epiphany. I'm like, oh, I'm actually not very future oriented in terms of my own influence and receiving things from the future. I mean, I have a little bit. I think we receive songs from the future. Sapphire for sure. You and I've talked about like Sapphire. That whole transmission felt like deep ancient stuff, but also a really deep future
Mm.
remembrance. And I I've been wanting to spend more time there. I've been thinking about time a lot and like thinking about like Chronos versus Kairos, like Chronos, which is like the like time that we can measure and time that has limits and time that is the clocks that are ticking. And then
Yes.
like Kairos with this deep time, this other thing. And I've been deeply inspired lately about what it would be like to create in relationship with Kairos timeline as an intention, like as like what would that be like?
Right.
Yeah.
Like to actually come into a conversation or collaboration with these great watchers or keepers of times or realms where, you know, time as because time is a realm, right? We have time, energy, space, matter. These are like these, foundational components that form the reality that we're navigating and enjoying this conversation in, right? And so I've often thought about that very thing. Like, what would it be like to have a cup of tea with the Council of Watchers that is experiencing 26,000 years is like a day to them. They're just kind of watching the spin of the cosmos and just to join that conversation of time. And I feel like through sound, through, working with indigenous people, shamanic practices, medicine, there's been moments throughout my journey where I've accessed those states of time where I can truly say I've met those watchers and have at least a visceral understanding that there is multiple vantage points and perspectives of time that are very unique to each other and have very unique agendas, you might say, or intentions that are being held. So I love that exploration for you, Mar, of in a way kind of ringing up ringing up that timekeeper and seeing what kind of collaboration could take place in that way. That's really exciting.
Yeah, and like it's that thing. I mean, I love hearing you talk about time because as I've experienced your work, especially with sound light and what we've talked about um in the exploration of sound and looping and like time spells within time spells and like the time bending that you play with your vocal practice, which has really like been such a trip to learn about and like rest into of like that's cool. And feeling into that as a space of like where you're creating these ambient sound spheres that are really a place what I've experienced, and I know so many people like to step into and like create, like it just sort of repatterns the whole nervous system and like defrags, it's like super powerful. And so there's that part of me that's like, yeah, I want to enter into more of these ambient spaces. But then I think about like, but I also want to write songs that are rugged and weird and like just slap, And so it's there, the dichotomies there again. And I think about the timekeepers, they must be laughing. They're like, oh yeah, it's 2025 and like people be people in. And I want to both live fully as a human being, like live and be really honest about the human experience, even the fragged out parts of it. And I think that that's just the place that I am always playing with in my art of like, how much energy and how much space do I give to the songs that are really juicy, but are from the fragged reality? And then how much do I focus on shucking all of that off and like going right into the center of the singularity and like turning into a ball of diamond light? Like I really am interested in that as well.
So it's like you want to completely dissolve and be reborn through the very heart of what art points toward, but also you want to like play the game and relate to other people while we do it. So it's like complete implosion of self, but also we want to like hang out and have a good time too.
Totally.
No big deal.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm painting between those two places all the time.
Well, that's what in the one of my mentors, James Mahu, would say something like there are these tributary zones, right, where these different aspects meet, and in those tributary zones, like for instance what you just said, complete and total utter implosion of self. There's nothing left but diamond light, because you've just kind of come into what we could call union with sound, or with your purpose, with path, where there's nothing needed when you're there. But then there's the other part of us that, like, we want to connect with our fellow humans. We want to co-create. We want to have relationships. We want to feel like we're part of something. We want to feel like we're doing something. And that's what, in a way, time offers us. Is time gives us this realm to kind of like go through the motions of doing things, and having a transformation, and moving lead into gold, and figuring that process out. And it takes a realm where there's time to be able to experience that, because in a realm of non-time, you think a thought and it's done. It's like, as soon as you turn your attention towards something, that reality is already, exploding into manifestation of that thought. And so we, in a way, are like slowed down light that is experiencing itself through, much more crystallized. Even the marrow of our bones has crystal in it. So we kind of are these like much more like slower motion, crystallized light beings that are walking around in somewhat dense ways in order to have the experience of going through the motions of a transformation process, and birth and death and relationship breakup and heartache, and then glorious exaltation, remembering who we are. Like, we love these big waves and these kind of dramatic loops of story that we are learning through as humans. And I think, in a way, it's fascinating that you are kind of honing in on time at this point in your journey, because you remember back in the day when everyone's like, oh, 2012, it's the end of time, and time's speeding up, and the Mayan calendar, and all, there was so much emphasis around this kind of end of time, right? And what's profound is that conversation kind of came and went. No one really talks about that anymore, because it was like, oh, okay, I guess, well, we're still going. So what really happened? And I've come to, through some deeper studies and chronology and other things, like started to track that 2040 is a significant date. There's other patterns within patterns of time, and we can talk about that ad infinitum. But what to me feels really important is that, as an artist, as an author of your experience, you hold this quill, and you're like scripting realities and mythos and narratives through your unique lens as an artist. And I see you, Marya, as I would say like a profoundly authentic leader, in the way that you're just exploring your personal relationship to art, to spirit, to creativity, we could call it, and then bringing, in a way, like your narratives or your transcriptions from that space and that relationship that you have with the muse. You're transcribing that experience for us. You're bringing it back, and then, in a way, the listener gets to go on this unique ride that I didn't relate to you until you said the words, that you really don't think about the future too much. I can feel that in your music. I can feel that you're not really trying to like map out there onto future. You're being so present, and in a way, you've been in this recollecting process of, I feel, a lot of ancient memory when I hear your music. I feel like a lot of like reclamation of Celtic songlines and Fey songlines, and songs of the water itself, like elemental, perspectives and expressions that speak through your music. So in a way, it's as a song keeper, I wonder if you can just like go back in time for a moment and just take us back to an early moment in your journey, like a memory or a dream or a sound where you first felt your voice, and you knew that this was more than just music or singing just to sing. Like, there was something connecting you to this story that we're kind of exploring a little bit. When did you first go upon that awareness?
My first memory, I just wrote about this actually again. I was 8 probably, and I was in my living room. I was somehow in a room, and no one was around, and no one could hear me. And I was standing in front of a mirror, and I just started to wail in making really loud sounds. I was like, because I was always singing and loving to sing, I was like, I'm gonna see what this thing can really do. And
Yeah.
and it was the first time that I entered into a self-induced altered state, and I could tell that that's what was happening. I was like, I'm in an altered state. I mean, whatever I thought of as a child, but I was like, I was having a conjunctive moment. I was staring at myself in the mirror.
Mhm.
The walls were melting. I was like, I could have been on acid. Like I was like seeing the portal open, and I was really expanded in my energy field and my sound, and I had never made sounds that loud before,
Mm.
except when I had been like crying and like really crying, but I had never really let it out. And something happened in my, like, it was the first time I connected to my diaphragm and my pelvic, like, it was the first time my instrument really was like, came on, and I could feel it as a whole body experience. And I remember like the room filling with light, and I was like, the colors were on point, and it was like I had just turned on my light body with my sound, and I was like, I'm having a really magical experience. And
Yeah.
that was the moment I was like, okay, voice can turn it on. And
Mm.
what and I can turn on the spirit. And I was really, from that moment, that I had a different relationship with myself and my creativity and I it's fun to think about it, because again, I had always been singing and playing and like create, like writing and stuff, but it was probably at that point that I really started to write poetry. It was
Okay.
that point that I really started to form a relationship with the the realm and the spirit of the muse, and being like, we're in it. That's the first moment I can remember.
Wow.
Mhm.
Where were you at that time? Like where you
I was
grew
in
up?
my living room. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and for some reason, I was at my house and no one was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like it might have been that my mom had just like gone like on a walk or something, because like I was
Mm.
really young. I remember being really young, and I was just like, I'm alone, and I just went to the mirrors like, "Ah," and I
Yes.
was,
You know
yeah.
what strikes me about that story, Mar, that's so profound, and I've never heard that origin point story from you, is you were describing how there's no one around, which is usually key to us exploring sound in a safe way. It's like not being witnessed,
Hmm.
which kind of links us back to that other conversation early on about when we're witnessed, it changes. And there's
Hmm.
a beauty to that, but there's also a beauty to not being witnessed in um, finding our voice, exploring our voice, kind of seeing what it can do. And I think probably most artists will have some kind of similar story, right? Where it's like, okay, no one's around, no one's telling me to be quiet or to, it's whether it's appropriate or not to make sound. Like, let me just see what this can do. Let me understand and explore my voice. And those are the kinds of spaces that we've ended up holding for, countless thousands of people. I know you have, and we have together. And that's pretty cool. But I just wanted to say that when you describe that experience, it occurs to me that most human beings on this planet likely, rarely, if ever, get an opportunity to see what their voice can do unless they're expressing trauma, anger, sadness. Like you said, you said the word something like, yeah, unless I was really crying, like really loud. And that was just like, it struck me when you said that isn't it interesting that most of us are probably kind of somewhat closed here a bit, like we're playing it safe, we're not speaking too loud, making too many weird noises, we learned how to speak in our cultural language so that we're like kind of just a part of the pack and talking the way other people talk, and we're using our voice and even the inflections of our voice, like going up or going down, and we kind of shape this expression, which is our one, because sound, of course, is the creator of realms, and it will reveal entirely new realities to us as it did to you when you just let it rip. You're like, let me see what it can do. And then the walls start melting and you have this experience of complete transcendence from the norm of what you were in before. So it's a very distinct shift that we have access to at any given moment. We can actually instigate or create ripple effects in reality if we change our voice, or let's say explore sound in it with intention. And in that moment, um yeah, it just, I don't know why, and I'm not sure that I have a point other than it's profound to me to like it's actually like brings up some emotion in my heart that, oh man, most human beings don't even know what that feels like unless it's traumatic, unless it's anger, unless it's something that bubbles up and it's like they have to wail and cry. And then that shapes reality really big. Like it affects us when we hear someone we love crying really hard or get upset and using their voice in anger or frustration or grief. But how often do we actually, besides maybe laughter and orgasms, like how often do humans really see what their voice can do with intent when there's not something traumatic happening? Like it's like, it's profound to me that there's so much uncharted territory for humanity as a whole to know what our voice can do. And so your experience that you just described, and I have similar ones that, that I can relate to you through. What do you think that says about our evolution as a species and the role of song catchers like yourself? Like, how is it our role to help others do that and awaken to that and touch into that? Because it seems like that's a big, in a way, like a gauge to how evolved we are as a species. Is like how much of our brain are we using? How much of our body and functions and sound have we figured out how to use yet? And it just seems like we're kind of just barely scratching the surface.
I mean, I love this. I mean, just thinking about, when are going to be the involuntary moments that we reach peak decibel?
Yeah.
Are these moments where there's a lot of energy coursing through. And so that's when the involuntary sound matches that. And that makes sense to me. And I think that that's usually like an edge of where people are experiencing vitality. Either like vitality in response to trauma or grief that's finally releasing, or eros and the ecstatic, and like that those are the moments. And it makes sense that there's an involuntary like need for the sound to like reach that volume. And so I think for then to have it be voluntary, what comes up immediately for me and my experience and what as far as I understand, is that like then I as a human get to cultivate my own capacity to experience vitality in my being. Not just when I'm needing to make a boundary or get attention or in the throes of passion, that it's actually like my capacity for this nervous system to circulate voltage.
Yes.
It's something that I get to choose to do as a cultivation. And my understanding of, any energetic cultivation, bringing the soul all the way into the body, that is something that it's a deliberate, dedicated process. It's like it's a process to be in like a relationship of soulcraft. So I feel it reminds me of that, like humans have these potentials to unfold to uncover, and for our luminous body to grow and expand, and for the rivers of light in our body to be able to circulate high amounts of chi, love, consciousness, and that the voice and sound. And I think that, I mean, for my understanding is that that's part of the journey, like that I'm just like, whoa, this is a body, and how much voltage can I run without blowing myself out? And I think a lot of people, there's like a natural collapsed energy, because getting to those edges, it's like, that sucks. And there's a rubber band and there's like a holding pattern. And that makes sense to me. I think working with the voice and working with people to just feel that they can relax their system and not just like be racing against intensity of all of this data or experiences of their past, of being witnessed in their own sound and their own beauty and their own whatever energy in the moment, that to like work with people being like, yeah, that like to resource and titrate and be with that energy, so that like I feel like my entire journey as a performer, and I feel like you helped me so much with this and all of the vocal core resonance practices that you taught me, and then we developed, shout out and plug for
Hey,
vocalcoreresonance.com.
let's
Elijah
go.
and Marya, our sound healing mystery school with the voice, going deep into what we're talking about.
VCR.
Yo. But you really did help me with the vocal practices that I started doing when we were working together, helped me to feel like I could run more energy in my being while being present, while making sound. And that like that expanded my capacity to feel myself in my breath, talk about things that I was scared of, like have conversations that were slightly volatile and not totally contained, and feel safe with that, and not like bracing and afraid. Like I became less fearful of dysregulated energies, and I stopped feeling as rigid around myself and other people. Like it actually changed my ability to be present no matter what the fuck was going on, which as a stage performer I needed, and it's like, and it actually helped me be able to bring more soul into my body while I was on stage. Like it totally changed the energetics of how surrendered I could go into an altered state of consciousness while being totally fucking present in my body.
Oh yeah.
And that's a very interesting dichotomy. And I think that is part of the power of of turning these engines on. And I feel like just that's been my process as a creative. Like a lot of my songs, I feel, and my journey with music has been tending to this feeling of like being like I center around it, like, well, what's the oracle? What's the channel? What is that? It's like, what is actually happening here? And it's because I think that we are innately as human beings designed in order to have these deeper relationships with the rivers and currents of other energies that we're in relationship with all the time, and that we're participating in creating the dream literally and figuratively and energetically and all the things. And so that's a lot. That was a big ramble, but I feel like it's orbiting all of that is centering around like, yeah, I do agree with you. I do think that we are that there's benefit in looking at how we can support other humans and expanding their capacity to feel their range, sound it out, and allow more of their vitality to come into their body, because then I think we become more capable of creating something that is life-giving.
Yeah, well said, Mark. When you spoke to some of the practices and technologies that, for instance, we co-taught and explored in vocal core resonance, and for almost 18, 19, 20 years, I've called them band of light technologies, just in my own heart, when I think of these ways of using sound that create space and allow us to explore, contain, stabilize, express, navigate reality. And it's wild that when you spoke to that in regards to having difficult conversations, like just really human, down to earth, super vulnerable, relational communication things that we all come into contact with all the time. Like what's the lattice work and connection points of an entire species is communication. Number one, we all are just seeking to kind of be heard and hear each other and find a language that we can relate to our environment, the people we're in relationship with, obviously starting with our families, our friends, our culture, our school. But it's as we navigate through the world, it becomes clear that there's a lot of different realities within this reality. Not everyone's on the same page. There are many languages being spoken, and as many languages as there are, there's at least, you know, 1,000 times for each language, if not millions. In fact, I imagine the number is exactly how many humans there are on the planet, is how many different perspectives there are, and how many different vantage points and shapes that reality is taking through that unique human being based on their experience and their woundologies and their you know, hopes, dreams, and visions, and through their unique imprint of what they're here to do and live and experience. And so communication, it's interesting because I find that two people can't really truly communicate unless they know what their personal note is. It's kind of like we'll never find a harmony if our notes are just going all over the place. But if you know what your note is, and I know what my note is, then those notes can resonate together. And in a way, we get to not only feel the joy of knowing ourselves, but knowing each other and knowing something, the third thing, which is something greater than the two of us, which is what that harmony reveals. And whatever word we put on that great creative source, you know, creator essence, I like to call it source, but that energy becomes so clear when we're in harmony. And in our relationships, it's interesting that I found myself, up until I started exploring these vocal techniques and really more just like energetic practices that would help ground me and create containment and safety for myself. Because this is like whether we're looking at it through the lens of music therapy, sound mastery, or just, you know, straight up humaning and just trying to be a better human and learn how to be a truly safe space. You can't really be a safe space for someone else if you're not a safe space for yourself. You can't really truly love someone unless you really love yourself, and the degrees are all related in that game, right? So the degree to which we are embodied, connected to our source, and truly, you know, a beacon of love is the degree to which we will be able to truly love someone else, be a beacon in relationship to them, and truly see and feel and experience safety with them. And I noticed that when you brought that up in regards to containment, in regards to even just feeling less triggered by volatile conversations and feeling more safe, in a way, that's kind of like a very refined but a pretty primal survival mechanism, in a way, to just figure out how to be here. One, how can I be here and not die? How can I be here and feel good? And then inevitably we want to share and resonate with more people in that experience. And so obviously I'm using words like die and be safe and this and that. That's the lowest, that's like super root chakra. The I guess the more balanced way to speak to that is, how can we stabilize being a human being and feel good here? And then how can we share that experience with as many people as possible? So wherever we're at on that journey of self-stabilization, or maybe we have stabilized to a degree that now our attention can point outward, and we can then start creating more environments that we can experience that harmony in, that we can experience that sense of safety and beauty and relationship in. And some of us have been on that journey for a long, long time. I know for me, it started when I was very young. I was already exploring with creating environments around myself and my family and other people around me through sound, through music, playing my piano, playing, kind of like creating these little realms and noticing that the air would shift, the quality and the field would shift, and people would change their behaviors. And I noticed, wow, if I just play from my heart and connect to God, it changes the world a little bit, and that feels better. So I'm going to do more of that because that feels good for me too. But what ultimately, let's get back to at the core of this conversation. What do you feel the artist's role is in this planetary transition? Like, how do we sing through the collapse and into coherence? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think the role of the artist is to reflect the the times
Mm-hmm.
in one way. There's so many roles. There's like, it's hard to pinpoint one because I think the role of some artists is to just, it's to bring what's inside outside.
Yeah.
Like just pull, like bring what's inside outside.
Mm.
Reflect, like be like digest and metabolize and assimilate what's like, be a reflector of the moment, of the time, to so that we have creative documentation and people can like see themselves, right?
Mm. Mm.
um and then I also think that there is a role of the artist uh to support people to be in the shattering. Like I think
Mm.
that there's a way that to be a friend in the shattering can help. Like the there's some artists that that's their role, be a
Yeah.
friend in the shattering. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
the role of other artists is to be able to give, like orient towards a direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's a lot that are happening. I think for myself, my role in the arts is to keep it moving. Like,
Mm.
like I to keep show, like I feel like really my role is to continue creating,
Mm-hmm.
um and to honor the creative process, even if part of my creative process is in the rest and digest and the emptying out and listening phase, but to
Yeah.
stay in the creative process, because that process is an alchemy. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel deeply committed to my role is as an alchemist to personally alchemize, collectively alchemize, keep tuning into to the sacred other,
Mm.
the mystic third, the timeless magic, and to keep it moving.
I love that, Mar. I wouldn't never expected that answer to just the role of you as an artist, the role of the artist to keep it moving. And that speaks to the current and the streaming quality of sound, the eternal nature of sound, the bubbling brook that I shared at the beginning of this podcast. That is where I tend to. That's how I feel when I listen to your music. It connects me to the stream. So I love that. In a way, that's a very distilled description of what your art does. It's like it keeps it moving. It's like let's just keep it moving. Don't get too caught up on that because you have a way, Marya, of I'm going to reflect you a little bit more right now because you have a way of playing through ritual and art, through archetypes, through your art, through even just like these archetypal feminine realms that you explore. I love how unabashedly willing you are to kind of drop one and try on the next one as a vehicle or an instrument of your expression. And I wonder if you could just speak to that a little bit, just as a vessel for the current of archetypal feminine energy in so many forms. Like how has that relationship evolve for you as both an artist but as a woman, because you have a unique role. Like there's artists, okay, we're talking about artists, we're talking about these very general topics, but you specifically are a keeper and an expressionist of archetypal feminine energy, and a lot of your work even with Voice of My Womb and She Rose and these other incredible productions and workshops and realms that you've been creating for the sisterhood to step in, and hone and sharpen and melt and unravel. I just love to hear your experience as a pillar in the feminine movement, because I really see you as a leader in that way as an artist.
Thank you. I am grateful to be able to contribute in a way that's meaningful for a collective part of the story.
Mm.
And what I can say about, like, it comes back to relationship with muse and to
Mm-hmm.
parts. And I have this image, I know you know it, as the meeting of the muses, where it's like I'm sitting at the Last Supper table with my pen at the center. They're like me, the bard, the translator of all the realms, and then
Mm.
all of my like 6 different aspects of my creative like internal reality all like vying for the pen, like all just being like,
Mhm.
write down my story, write down my story.
Yeah.
And that was a very satisfying piece of art to create, because up until that point I felt like I was really embattled with these different parts of myself, and I didn't feel like I could safely and joyfully move through the different parts, even though that's what I was doing anyway. But I think because there was a lot of um influence of the like artist development narratives of like, pick niche down, pick your angle and go for it. And I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
baby, I got fucking Venus and Gemini. I'm not like picking any one of these realms. I like them all, you know?
Yeah.
And so for many years that was like the bane of my existence and exhausting. And now it feels like just I've joyfully surrendered to that is how I dance in the realms, and that
Hmm.
I'm more of like, I feel like a very archetypal mirror in that way. Like somehow
Mm.
I am a character, I'm a character be like mirror, and that certain muse energies I have formed deep relationships with that feel like
Mm.
other lifetime relationships, one of which
Mhm.
is this sort of like rose essence feminine empowerment alchemy priestess energy, even though I don't I don't go around calling myself a priestess, but like who she is as I see her, it's the ones who I've been initiated by, and like it's like the streams of lineage initiations of my soul inside of
Yes.
temple arts and inside of the oracular arts, like
Mm.
that energy line is a very close and personal spirit friend. And
Yes.
even though there have been times in my artist journey where I feel like more that work is a ministry, like I, that there's this part of me that like I'm in service to a ministry current that it is beyond me as an individual and my life experiences. It's part
Mm.
of a continuing a thread of energy that is congruent and coherent and filled with millions of people's prayers and rose petals inside
Mhm.
of every river in the world. And I feel
Yes.
very connected to her and to that aspect of myself. And that is definitely not all I have to say. I have a
Right.
lot of other weird shit I like to write
You're
about.
like, I got some other angles in here,
I
y'all.
do.
Don't just put me in that rose covered box because I got some other
I
things
do.
going
I like
down.
for a long time I was like, should I be like have that as an alter ego? But then I felt like I
Right.
was splitting myself into two. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should put all my like songs of devastation and personal disaster, and maybe that should be an alter ego, and or the
Right.
darkness, and that maybe that should be an alter ego. And I'm like, I don't like they're genuinely different rooms, and they have
Mm.
different, and I have different guardian aspects that are
Yes.
and muse beings that come in
Mm.
relationship. And I feel like some muse beings I've been walking with my whole life.
Yep.
I feel like some have come and gone, and I feel like there are probably a few that are on the periphery of my awareness that I
Mm.
haven't, that are waiting for me to empty out some of my
Mm.
um current mandates in order to reveal themselves, and they're not going
That's
to
it.
cut in line, they're waiting their turn, but I can feel them on the outskirts, and they have
Mm.
some very specific creative mandates for me that we're going to be in a deep collaboration, but they like haven't
Mm.
entered into my full counsel yet, but they're like sending
Yes.
me emails, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. You feel them at the door, but they haven't imposed upon your current process or
Yeah.
archetypal commitments presently.
Yeah, I have some
I
commitments right now, and I'm
yeah.
deep in commitment with a few of these beings, and like
Yeah.
again, and I think like the feminine, the red woman, she's a lifelong bestie.
Yeah.
Like we're never like we're gonna go the distance together.
Totally. Yeah, and I honor that about you. I mean, you so beautifully represent and bring forth and sing through these archetypes of you. I mean, there's a part of them that's in you that is coming through as you. And I so honor, and I hope everyone can feel the nuance through your, poetic brilliance in the way that you are accessing and exploring reality through art, is that you still keep it. There's a sweet buffer zone of, this is all still art that's happening here, and that there's like a little bit of like a foul-mouthed sailor that I know in you from way back there somehow too, where there's just like, we could just get down and be real too, and it's like I see you as certainly embodying the queen, priestess, diva, the best of the best of what a diva is meant to be for the collective, as a singer that shows up and is like, I think of like in the Fifth Element, they call her the diva, that blue incredible being. Like, that's what I mean when I say diva. I'm not talking about
goals.
Beyonce.
I'm talking about goals.
You know what I mean?
Blue alien chick, goals.
Blue alien chick. Like like you have the capacity to go there, I think, energetically in your art. Like, you bring me there, because you're just so unabashedly available to be both out of the box, but also use and collect and direct all of these streams of these archetypes. And when you were speaking about them as being like kind of all vying for the pen, that ultimately you as the transcriber, as the scribe, as the bard are holding, it dawns on me that some of the work that we did together in VCR and some of the basics of orienting ourselves through the right use of sound, consciousness, breath, helps to, in a way, kind of cohere that internal counsel. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced that many times too. I can absolutely relate to the feeling of there is, very diverse archetypes sitting in a council inside of my own heart. And each of them wants the next thing to be about them, or has stories to tell, or has the next album, or the next dibs on the next song. And, I just dropped a freaking reggaeton dance track in Spanish 2 days ago. It's like, who is that guy? And in a way, there's like, that's just a part of me that's all, since I was a kid, I can relate to that guy that like studied as a drummer, Afro-Cuban rhythms and music, and just getting into Brazilian and percussion, and just, he's a part of me. And so in a way, I love, as you're describing this internal counsel, I wonder if the listener can even, for those of you out there, if you can relate to this, what Marya and I are speaking to, how there are all these aspects. And rather than, I see many artists, and this is not good or bad, it's just something I notice. I notice many artists, especially a lot of great artists, will kind of identify with one of them and go all the way. Mm-hmm. And in a way, many of the greats, when you think of them, you're like, oh yeah, they do that thing. Like, when you think of their archetype, like they're that pouty, kind of like somewhat sad, song, like, Jeff Buckley, or you have like they're, whatever the archetype is, they're doing it so well. They're so committed to that archetype, and that's how they're known. And when you think and feel them, they have this place that's like, yep, that's where they live in eternity, in music, in art, in greatness, is they play out that archetype. But I wonder, what benefit do you receive by not necessarily overclaiming any one of them, but being available to the whole council? And even as you're speaking to it, you're like, yeah, and there's even more. They're like waiting at the door. Like, once I'm done with these expressions, there's probably other expressions waiting. And that's, to me, I see that as being a much more mercurial, available, like more superconductor. Like, that's how I relate to it in the Band of Light. That's the name I would put on it. It's like, you're a superconductor, Marya. And so what benefit do you receive from not over identifying with any one particular archetype as an artist.
Yeah, well, the benefit is that I'm not exiling parts of me that really want have that I've formed a relationship with creatively.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying to any of them that they don't belong,
Right.
or that they're not valued and welcome to hang out. And like maybe that's like my sweet little music therapy pumpkin, and just like, everyone, let's play together.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that that's sweet. The other thing that there's a benefit is that I don't have to trip out about like outgrowing my shell, because I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of artists get sick of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that they're just sick of their shtick,
Yeah.
or they're like discover something new, but they've like built this whole ride on this thing, and then they're like, and that there's all
Mm-hmm.
this cognitive dissonance, and they have to go through this whole like either abandoning their previous shell, or like go through like this existential fear of breaking up with their audience or whatever. It's like
Totally.
I don't have any of that going on in me at all.
Which is
That's
it's so
beneficial.
refreshing. It's so refreshing. No, on the flip side of that though, do you feel or are you aware of any thoughts or any sensations or any awareness of feeling like there could be a limitation or that it's holding you back in some way as an artist? This is a question I ask myself sometimes, is because I haven't chosen an archetype. I've never chosen a genre. I've never chosen, I'm going to be this guy and play that guy for the rest of my life. I'm going to reinvent myself with every new album. So because you do that too, we have that in common. Do you feel ever like that holds you back in any way? Or do you
I
ever
mean,
wonder
look,
what it would be like to just choose a freaking path and stick to it?
pick a lane.
Pick a
I mean,
lane, girl.
I'm sure if I just went all in on making cool ambient music, I'm sure like my streams would go way
Right?
up. Like I'm
Totally.
sure. And like there might come a time in my life where I go all in on making ambient music, and that's my shtick. But like I have time to I always think about my buddy Travis. He's
Mm,
just like, I'll make nice, peaceful, slow music when I'm older. Right now, I want to make
yeah.
punk rock.
Yeah.
But I want to be loud, and I feel the same. I'm
Mm,
like I have my whole life, but yeah. Do I think that if I had committed to just creating like a folk vibe and sticking to that, and not like, maybe, I don't know. I don't think like, or if I'd picked pop, I don't know. I think I would have. It didn't happen, so I don't even know if it's hard. It's hard to say, because I think every time I've tried to sit down and be like, I'm gonna do this now, like
yeah.
there's just like you said, my Mercury is so strong
Mm,
that it just doesn't do it. Like it just it's not function. It doesn't function that way. So
right.
I think it's more been
You're just
um
built different, Mar. You're built
because I've
different.
had a lot of, like all of the coaching that I have received from industry professionals trying to like do artist development with me,
Mm-hmm.
in strong quotations, were really asking and encouraging me to pick a thing and stick to the bit.
Yeah.
I couldn't even pick one. There's just
Do you frustrate people who try to like help you and develop you as an artist, or like potential managers come into your, like, do you notice how it makes their job a little more difficult?
yeah, because it's not the there's not a status quo, there's not a
That's
standard.
right.
And I'm not like, I think a lot of artists who even do find their lane
Mhm.
wrestle with it, and like
Yeah.
to us it's so clear, like, oh, you're this thing and do that, but to them they're like, no, I like all these other things, and how can this
Sure.
be one thing? And I hear albums all the time from my friends, they're like, it's all over the place. I'm like, no, it's not, it's fine, you sound great, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. It's
totally
all
you.
you. So yeah.
And I feel that way with me, so I don't think like, and I think as I've gotten more mature, and like as my as I've really refined the kind of things that I'm like, what are my style? Like, it doesn't matter what the instrumentation is. I think my love of story is always there, and my love of like vocal layers and like type of things it's gonna be there. And so that's the common thread. But I love this piece around the archetypal play, and I think I like theater. I like theater. I like sacred theater. I'm also like funny enough because right now I'm in this whole like stripping it down there. What about no theater? What about nothing
Yep.
ancient? What about no archetypal realm whatsoever? What happens if I'm just completely naked? And
Yep.
that's like a brand new experience. And that's a whole thing that I'm like
Mm.
right now feeling of just like how how many of these robes that I've wearing can I take off?
Mm. Mm.
Not like instead of like I'm going to take on the roan and become this one and like become like
Yeah.
I've done a lot of play inside of that for years, and I'm just switching into this other thing. I mean, maybe it's
Yes.
just a season. Maybe I'll the who knows what's on the other side, but I feel that right now.
Hmm. It's funny you say that because I did a show here on Kauai a few days ago and you had performed at the same venue,
Mhm.
and the sound guy Et that was
Yeah.
working with you did the same thing to me he did to you. He was playing some of your music from your show recorded while I was setting up for my show. So I'm like getting plugged in, about to do a sound check, and I'm hearing my friend Marya coming through the speakers, but it was the most stripped down I've heard you in a long time. And I was like, is this, wait, when is this from? Like, who is this? Like, I know it's you, I know your voice, but I'm like, this is such a beautifully naked, raw, stripped down version of you that I rarely get to hear.
Mhm.
In terms of your recorded content, and a lot of what you've been producing and releasing recently, and again, our paths have been very reflective of each other because I can relate to so much of this, right? Just who we are in the studio, who we are on a stage, who we are in different ensembles is the same essence, but it's going to have these unique expressions and in a way highlight different parts of that artist council, right, in our hearts. But I just wanted to reflect to you that hearing you just sing with you and your guitar these stripped down songs was so beautiful, so it invoked so much emotion to hear. And I think that oftentimes I get that feedback where people are often looking for more vulnerability, more stripped down, more humanness in us as artists. And not always, but I do hear that feedback a lot. I'm curious about that part. Like, okay, when all of these archetypal or let's just even say like just artistic explorations are done and it's just us sitting on the floor with our guitar, you know, who's that voice and what does she have to say and where is her place in this story?
Yeah, I think I'm just figuring that out because I mean, I started there. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
started, and it was just raw emotion, raw teenage girl emotion
Yeah.
was where it
Yeah.
started, and then it's evolved with cinematic magic and like just even the
Mm-hmm.
tour with Sheroes. Like I redid a bunch of songs and I released the Sheroes Lineage remixes and because I needed to create sound bed that was appropriate for dancers to
Mm-hmm.
choreograph to, which was a
Right.
real fun adventure into actually hitting something that I've always wanted to do and like doing a 2.5 hour stage show with like backing tracks and like sound like a big display,
Mm-hmm.
which was really fun. And I came off of that tour and I played that show in Hawaii and it was like I like did half the show with my voice in a shaker. I wasn't even playing guitar, and I was like, "This
Right.
feels really interesting." But this is exactly how I wrote the songs,
Mm-hmm.
And I've had been living in the songs with like big, puppets and costumes and dancers, and it's interesting how a seed can become the full montage and the full
Mm-hmm.
parade, and I think that it's fun to go back and forth um to play because and to have both things stay alive because I wouldn't be satisfied with a career where I was only singing and playing guitar and doing my shaker. Like that would be
Right.
devastating if that's the only thing I did for the rest of my life. But it interestingly enough, on She Rose, I did have like one really raw naked moment on She Rose, which was
Mm.
really powerful. Um, but it was also like that display was like the introspective, you know, like Enneagram 4, like a very sensitive lady, like wasn't on that stage. She was
Mm-hmm.
something else again, like that Maha, like red lady goddess. She came on the stage like that was her show, but this other like really like Marya person does something else. And so I'm
Yeah.
always, and I think it's
Yeah.
like that's the thing with these archetypal energies. It's like these are higher self aspects that come
Yes.
on, that have
Yes.
access to the range that I've expanded to as Marya, to
Mm,
be able to come through and bring something that's outside of time and space. That's something that I would,
mm,
think to create. It's like that's what happened. And like that's part of oracling and portaling and channeling. And
mm,
for me as an artist, I'm always in the range of like, again, coming back to kind of the original, what am I, how deep am I going into the vault of my own heart and a look and discovering there? And then how much space can I open up there so that I can be um surrendered to the higher consciousness states
mm,
that want to come on and bring me outside of time and space and self, to include other and world and to a focalizing moment. And then how do
mm,
I as an artist dance between those two places masterfully and mischievously, and and like I feel like really that's the heart of my life as a bard, is this like
mm.
the bard with the back, like that's all in the magic backpack of the bard. The bard can show up and be like, here's a seed, here's the
Yep.
thing, here's the thing and the display, and then
Mm,
it all back up into the seed.
right. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Everything you just shared there is I think a masterclass in and of itself of um, because it's spoken so softly and assuredly and playfully through you. But I think for a lot of people, that is a really challenging thing to relate to because most humans are pretty locked into the archetype that they think they're playing, right?
Mm.
Like I'm Bill and I'm an accountant and that's what I do, and so that's who I am. And then I go home and I wake up and that's who I am, right? So for everyone who's listening, I'm my I pray that this conversation is holding the essence of our original intention, which is just to kind of open up a space for your inmost self to reacquaint itself with how much room there actually is in here to play with archetypes, to play with who you are and who you're becoming and who you are being each day. And to be, I just experienced so much like the bard art that you are, and to be a bard in general means there is a little mischievous playfulness that's not taking it too seriously. That's kind of inherent to that role as an artist. Like there's just something about thank God you're not so attached to everything you're putting out, but at the same time, like that's why it's so powerful. And like, if you want to get attached to it, great, but I'm not, because I'm going to be something else. And I'll just put it all back in my backpack and see what happens when I show up at the next town. And there's something so powerful about that as a service to humanity, to make sure that we don't lose our connection to awe and to wonder and to what's beautiful and magical about the world. I think they're, especially because we're getting so algorithmically shepherded into this, computerized, freaking social media. Everything we're interacting with, generally speaking, is on a screen or through a screen. And even this interview, we're interacting through a screen. But we have the capacity, like I can close my eyes and have this conversation with you in space and time because we both have a well-developed and very nourished relationship to our creative spirit, to creativity in general, to the muse, as you call it, to wherever the music comes from. And because that ocean is so warm and welcoming and well traversed in our own hearts, we're not so reliant. We don't take this place so seriously, But I think for a lot of people, especially growing up today with social media and with these tools and trying to find out who they are within this matrix of frameworks and tools that they're given, is it's that's a heavy space to try to find the warmth and beauty and freedom that I think you and both of us actually just navigate and speak from so effortlessly. And I just wanted to highlight that because it is so effortless the way you speak about your art, and it is so effortless the way that you share your poetic perspectives. And I just wonder, what would you say if you could just share a tone or a pulse from where you are without leaving where you are, but just to share a pulse with those who feel maybe far away from this conversation in their own creative life. And, I know you work with a lot of women and a lot of just human beings in unlocking their voices and unlocking their art, unlocking this magic that you seem to have such deep well springs of access to. What would you say to those who are maybe just feeling a little bit more muggly right now, a little bit kind of like in this day to day, watching the news and what's on social media, and maybe they make a post, and maybe their post on Facebook is the most creative thing they do that day? Like, what would you say to that collective that maybe is seeking to just get 1 inch closer to the stream that you are so deeply in touch with?
I mean, I think that was a beautiful thing. Like, it's like they say that when you pay attention to your dreams pay attention to you.
Mm.
So when you pay attention to what you're inspired by, inspiration starts to pay attention to you.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to pay attention, like extra attention. And I love the teachings from one of my like most beloved teachers, Lair Short. He is always talking about that, like, our human design is to be exploring, growing, creating, discovering, learning. Like, when we're living from that place, we're like a fish in water. If we're
Mm-hmm.
tripping
Mm.
on anything else besides like having an orientation towards create like openness and discovery and curiosity, that we are not actually in our design. And so
Right.
what I love is this: if I notice like that paying attention, that like noticing, oh, am I tripping? Okay, well, that's a good moment to interrupt what I'm doing,
Mm.
and like, what could I notice right now? Like, what is there in my environment that I could pay attention, give my favor, right? Like, what's the flavor of this thing that I'm favoring? How
Mm.
can I savor it and enjoy it? And it's just
Yes,
this
nice.
pivot into this flavor, savor of a sparkle of a moment. And when I start to do that, like if I'm having any kind of entropy eddying and any of it, right? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, anytime I'm out of my design, like I'm out of the flow, I'm not
Mm.
inside the note.
Mm.
um I can easily regroup by being like, what inspired me today? Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
we're tripping online all the time. We're barely, and they're taking in so much art mixed with so much drama, mixed with all of like, but I
Mm.
forget, like, half the time, like, I'm online because the painful things that I experience sort of linger deeper because we have
Yes.
a higher sense for pain than pleasure and beauty. But even if I go
Mm.
online and I actually see something beautiful, like, to actually take a moment and really go like, wow, what was beautiful about that? What
Yes.
did I like about that?
To revel in it for a moment, not scroll past it to the
Could
next
I
freaking
savor
doom
it? Like,
scroll.
and like having that moment. And I think for people who are like, well,
Mm-hmm.
my brain's been all fragged out by scrolling, as that'll
Mm-hmm.
do, is like, go take a walk, like, go move your body, just go do something, and just open your view a tiny bit to see if you can just see something sparkle. Is it the leaf?
Yes.
Is it the flower? And just like hone in on it. And I know
Mm.
that it sounds like a simple thing, but over time, these micro moments that is just like, how do I get 5% closer to the stream? You just,
That's it.
you do it 5% at a time.
Mm.
And you do it by paying attention and favoring something with your attention and appreciating it. And like when you appreciate it, it appreciates you back. It gives back. And then you are in a feedback loop suddenly of inspiration. And you can so quickly enter the door. The doors are not far away. They're just in one direction of looking and seeing it slightly differently.
Yes. Yes. Oh, so well said.
Yeah.
It's truly, one step away, like one just fraction of a shift of our perspective, and we're in a brand new reality. And I love that you named gratitude and appreciation. And appreciation is like another word for currency and paying attention. Like we're giving something, so we're giving our attention or pointing it somewhere, and thus we are receiving the benefit or the beauty or the detriment of what we're paying attention to. So you get what you pay for. And so I love that, Marya, and I love the way you said it. It's like, just look for a little bit of sparkle. If you can find a little spark in the arc of where you are, that's a orientation practice that I enjoy coming back to as well. I want to just name something, because it was been a while back. You mentioned something that kind of sparked something for me, that when I look at the scope of our friendship, and we've been friends and also fellow artists and collaborators in multiple forms, even though it seems like we've kind of just scratched the surface in collaboration. I wonder if you remember and could tell us a little bit about through your lens, the first time we met, and how, like, the origin story, because it has to do with the Band of Light. It's very mythic as far as I'm concerned, my memory of it. And I just love to hear you recall that particular myth, because it's worthy of, I think, mentioning here for archival purposes.
Excellent. Well, I had just finished my music therapy internship in Las Vegas, and I had just had my big ruby dream, which you and I had both been like having big magic with ruby energy.
We're gonna have to tell people what that means too.
Yeah, like just the ruby energy. I mean, like, there's and so anyway, well, I'll let you. Yeah, I had a deep like realm of the red lady that we've been talking about. Like, she came into my life in Las Vegas and delivered rubies right into the center of my being.
Yes.
And had just sent me on a path.
So there's some kind of like archetypal artistic transmission that arrived 100%. In you that had a lot to do with the energy of ruby and this kind of archetype that you're still dancing with.
I'm still dancing, and womb and passion and the heart and feeling and love and blood and like radiance and like all, like it was just a bliss.
It's the ruby ray. It's like ruby ray came through you, touched you. So that had just happened. You're in Las Vegas.
And so then I was moving from Las Vegas and I was heading to Santa Cruz. And on the way I went to Sedona, to Raw Spirit Festival, and I had lost my voice. Actually, wow. I had been sick and I lost my voice. And so I was showing up at this festival to play, but I didn't have a voice.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember seeing you in the field. I was like, we're going to be friends. I was like, that dude's my friend for sure. And then I remember you walked into a place where I was singing Whimsical Dance with like no voice. I remember the song I was singing, and you were there briefly. And then you played in a tent, and then you were giving your like whole like tent magic. I was like, oh, we're definitely going to be friends. I didn't know your music, or I was like, oh, we're for sure going to be friends. And then it was like the big last night of the party.
Yeah.
And like Sipes was playing after you, and you like opened up the space for Sipes, and I was going to sing with Sipes. Like I was like, preparing to sing on his set.
Got it.
but you were there. And I love that you have this memory, which I don't have this memory at all, but apparently you have a video footage of it.
I do. I might even show some video footage in this podcast when we launch it, if I can locate that video.
My
Because
God.
there's this moment, you guys, it's so Mar. Like it's so early Band of Light. Like we were just little 2008. We had our little rainbow diapers on out there in the world, and we're just like doing this thing for the planet. And all I know is I'm on stage. Yeah, that's right. Because I was opening, and then Sipes was going to headline right after. But his whole band ended up joining me on stage because I think I met Daniel, who's become a dear friend, Conscious Krieger. He's played in the Band of Light for many years now. But I remember meeting him, and it's just like, hey, do you want to hop up with me? I don't have a band here. It's just me, but I have all these songs that because this album just dropped, this EP, and the EP was Ray One, and Ray One was the Ruby. So in a way, there was this whole transmission that I just so enjoy the mythic significance of it all. And just, you can't make this stuff up. It's like, okay, this whole Ruby mythos came to me of the Band of Light. This is the first Ray, and it has these qualities to it. And I made this whole album about it. And I'm literally like, it's like the album release party was that night. And there you are, you just come from your journey, getting this transmission about Ruby, which has birthed probably multiple albums. And it's been this like deep archetypal force in your life as an artist. So in a way, it's like we both got the memo and we showed up. And I loved, I didn't know that you were there to sing with Sipes, but all I know was the Band of Light just started going off, and like this absolutely joyful but profound portal opened up, as only can be done through music and gathering and a bunch of people eating raw foods and just like yogis and just the best of the best were there in that crowd at that moment. Like so many legends were there in that moment. And I just remember the energy was just getting so off the charts, and people are going into trance and people are freaking screaming, and it's just like dancing. And then all of a sudden the stage is getting fuller and fuller with all the greatest artists that were there. So like Scott Huckabee's on stage playing guitar. Sipes' whole band ends up, like his drummer, his bassist, his guitarist, his keyboardist is now on stage. And then I look and there's Marya, and you're just like, there you are on stage. And all I remember is looking down the stage and just seeing you like in your full embodiment, like just like you were like the representation of like the womb bearer of the room, like just leading the crowd in breath work and just like just facilitating and just like playing your role in the band. I'm like, this is my sister right here. Like, who are you? Like, where did you come from? But I like feel like I met you in the Band of Light, like in the energy of that moment and what was coming through us collectively. But also that was a real pivotal moment for me, because it's like, and shout out to Sipes. I love you, brother. It was so funny because that night, I remember he was just like behind the stage, just kind of watching like this. It's like watching me play with his whole band in a way. And we were just going off because there was no rules. It was so free and it was so obviously joyful, and it kind of like stole the show of the whole night. And at the same time, it showed me that, by just showing up and saying yes to music, what's possible. Like I got to see all the artists that got on that stage just like touch something in themselves. And I wonder if you even felt that just being there in that energy. What was that like for you? Because I have my lens on it, but I'd love to hear yours.
I think it was just, I was young. I was such a baby then. I was like fresh. And I think that was like at that, like it was main stage moment. I was like, I had not had that yet. I was like fresh. I was like just coming into performing. I hadn't been on, like, I think I had played a little on a big stage once.
Yeah.
With Scott Huckabee, funny enough, at dance, which I broke my back that night on stage. I broke my back on stage. The first time I was ever really going for it dancing on stage was with dancing as a guest with Scott Huckabee when I
Wait.
was 20 at Earth Dance. I swear to God, this
Oh my
happened.
God.
And that was the moment. And that was the
Wait,
first.
what year was that Earth Dance, by the
That
way?
was probably 27.
To,
2007.
you know what's crazy is I think I was at that Earth Dance and I played as well a tweener set, like a 15-minute between the headliners on the main stage. There's like
Wow.
5,000 people. And I heard about some girl broke her back.
Oh.
Was that you? That must have
I
been
don't
you.
know if I knew at that time. I mean, I hurt my back.
Or somebody, yeah, it was like,
walk. Like
I remember hearing this like whisper in the back say like, oh, that's somebody hurt. She hurt herself on the stage. I feel like I was right around there. That's funny.
Trip. I don't know. It's like a thing. So it's interesting because that was probably the second time I was on a big stage, was on that stage that night.
Interesting.
It's just like, it's interesting. We're like unpacking more of the mythos now.
Yeah, because we've never actually had this conversation. I've always delighted in where it rests in history and in my heart, because that's a long time ago.
Well, because I just remember I was like, I just was like, and then you played an after party also in Sedona, probably like two nights, like the next night or the night after, and that's where we actually like met.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
But I remember that show as well, and I was
like, oh. I think Porangi was there too.
Yeah,
that was OG family, music family. That's actually that's where I met Porangi for the first time. Yourself. Multiple artists, obviously Sipes and Daniel Krieger, and that LA kind of conscious hip hop, scene. And that was incredible. We're definitely going to find a clip and play it for this podcast, because we can't get away with that. We have to show people what we're talking about.
It was a vibe.
It was a vibe. So that all being said, just to bring that all the way back around, like, what have we learned? Like, what have you learned? That was your first or second time on the main stage. Here we are. It's 2025. You've been touring. You've been releasing albums. You've definitely, like, I'm humble to the fact that most of the world is not woken up to who you are as an artist yet. And by that, I mean, it's not like you've got some major machine behind you, like, freaking pop management and all this like major backing, but you have absolutely sent ripples through the arts, the culture of music, the culture of what it means to be a woman in these times. Like, so many women I know, so many sisters look up to you, absolutely revere your work. And in all the places your art and your work has touched, I just want to thank you for being who you are, for being available to be not only an instrument of creativity and music and art and beauty, but also being so willing to kind of let go of whatever you just did to be available for the next thing. Because I've noticed in the time I've known you since 2008, just so many profound versions of Marya Stark have come through, and I love all of them. And I remember really, really feeling like, ooh, okay, my homegirl Mar she's not just like another tribey, singing some songs that are going to come and go. Like, you are really actually producing something timeless. Is when I heard the Lightning in a Bottle work. I think it's The Garden is the album, right? Yeah. So The Garden, that whole album, I'm just like, okay, put some respect on her name, because this is like some very, very refined songwriting, very, like, some very complex poetry, and like, it's such visual writing that, to me, I would say is cinematic. It's timeless, and it brings me, again, like, I say this with humility, but it's like it invokes like Shakespearean, essence in me, in terms of like what really profound bardic art can do to a listener. And so, I just wanted to say that I've always revered you as an artist, but also just as a human being. I appreciate the ways you have been raw and real and called me in times where there's just been like shit going down and personal relationships. And I've done the same with you. It's like there's been a beautiful friendship here that I just so deeply appreciate. And I wish for everyone to widen their receptivity of you as an artist, to maybe catch some things they may have missed along the way that I've certainly been tracking. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to feature you, as one of the first guests on the Life in the Band of Light podcast, is because when I think of epic key moments in the Band of Light, there you are in one of those. We just spoke to one of them. So you really have a special place in my heart, in the Band of Light's heart, and I hope we get to collaborate in multiple realms from here. And knowing that you said something interesting a while back in this conversation. You said, I rarely think about the future. I don't, you're kind of, I'm still intrigued by that. I'm still like noticing, ooh, that's still rippling in my heart. Yeah. Because I guess I want to hear, maybe just because it could be a fun challenge or an interesting place to play. Like, where do you see this going? What would you map out there into the future if you could just be playfully present with these ripples that you are currently in service to? Where do you see this going? Where do you see yourself going, and how do you want to play from here on planet Earth? What kind of world do you want to be a part of?
Awesome question. Thank you. Yeah, I think like in order to know where you're going, you got to know where you're coming from. And I think I've been in the relocating myself. I think with Underground River, that was such a core piece of finding like an origin of a wellspring of resource from like my kind of the water ancestors of like the origins of life in water and sound and light. And I was like, okay, I've sung that song, and that song's gonna weave me through any of these other fragged moments. And it's like bringing me present. And what's happening right now, I'll speak about it in like my personal mythology, is like I'm working on this body of work called Vase, which is becoming the vase, which is an initiation in becoming the channel and the vessel. That's the project. And there's a lot.
Vase, like VASE?
VAS.
Oh, Vase. Yeah.
People spell it like VASE, but I'm calling it VAS. It's like, how do I become that portal? And what I think about in terms of the future, like I feel like I'm in this sort of reckoning of clearing my lens enough that I can get an accurate view of the future. Like I went to Greece this last year, and I learned about stilling the waters of the body in order, like to still the disturbed waters of the body in order to see the reflection, and that as human beings, to like we actually have the ability to still the waters and like look in the mirror pool of our own psyches, and like from there receive the future vision. And I think that's been happening a lot. That's happened my whole life in terms of muse visions coming from the like awakening of the still mirror. But I have been wanting to spend more time. Like, so I just invoke right now the beautiful still mirror here of the still waters in the heart. When I look into that space and I think about a future life on planet Earth, I think about the space that I want to participate in culture tending is a place where there is there's a space for new ways of learning and cultivating imagination. There's a way that it's like simple things. It's like food is grown well, and children have safe places to be barefoot, and families are so much more than nuclear family, like just like entrapments and like isolation. That there are networks woven within community that create a space for the culture at large to defrag the things that the collective body is holding. Like I feel like my role as an artist is to continually dream into the body of the collective, that there's space for that to happen. And how does that happen when there's so much ongoing like ruckus and trauma and violence? And so I feel in myself, like when I perceive a future on this planet, like I pray for a place where those um big portals are contained, and that the portals of devastation are fucking binded well, and that the body of the people can like actually start to heal. That's what I pray for in the future. I also pray for like just really incredible technologies to come and profoundly clean the waters, and to, like for mushrooms to just come and like do their magic on things that we thought wouldn't decompose for a million years, that like some deep just earth digestive magic comes and just is like
That's it.
and that we're getting to like feed and tend those gardens as part of our repair process with the planet, and our participation of vesseling through energies that we're siphoning and extractive, that we can also participate in the repairing of the soils, repairing of the waters, repairing of the spiritual levels of consciousness and being that have been impacted and impaired. That's what I see in the future, and that from there, yeah, that there is restoration and healing and hope.
Wow. So beautifully said. I'm with you in every nuance and every space between the notes of that prayer. And I love that as you spoke the word repair, it for some reason invoked a visual that I've never considered with that word, which is to repair, is to kind of like reharmonize the purity of polarity, to repair, and I love that. I don't think we need to
Awesome.
muse on that too deep, but I thought that's an interesting little code contained in that word. To repair is to kind of reharmonize, the magnetic poles of life itself, and to just, kind of clear up the sphere and just kind of reinstate the wholeness and balance vibration, to repair. So thank you for that prayer. Thank you for the role that you're playing in living that future here and now, just the way you are breathing it, feeling it, focusing on it, singing about it, being in service to it through your work and in your workshops and your tours. I see you laying a groundwork and a living lattice work, and being part of that spore network that's transmuting, like the mushrooms that you're speaking about, transmuting all the particulates that we thought could never be broken down, the pain and the grief and the sadness and the devastation that's been caused, and even, such harmful self-replicating technologies that are just seemingly just being spread into biology itself right now. I trust and I know and I feel with you, Marya, that even that which we think is irreparable can be repaired, can be returned to its original divine blueprint, and that we each are instruments of that repair if we choose to be. And I really appreciate your role in that way. And I see you, I love you, I appreciate you so much. And I think this is a perfect place to pause. I'm sensitive to your time. We've been on here for a while, so I just want to say thank you for taking this moment and opening up this portal of exploration with me here. And I think just maybe to close this chapter in a good way, I want to ask, what does life in the Band of Light mean to you? Just because your artistic lens is, I want to know what that means to you and how you see and how you feel that. What's life in the Band of Light?
Well, it's, I've always resonated and felt myself inside the Band of Light. And I think when I was in college, I created this cartoon series of the music notes, the music note. You can imagine it's the heart song, and it's the music note, and he's carrying a key. It like his it's an upside down music note with his little tail, and he's holding a key, which is a music note to unlock the heart. And that this is like the heart song, and that in this series we have the heart song and the key. It's actually my tattoo on my back, on the back of my leg, which I'll send a picture of later. But
we'll put that in the podcast.
There you go. And then it's he's holding the key, and then there's all of these. I drew this image of the earth, and it was all broken and shattered in place. And there were all of these little music note superheroes. And they were rainbow. They were just like rainbow music note superheroes. And they were like all trumpeting, creating the music that was starting to create the stitches that were bringing the healing back to the planet. And then from there, they were just trumpeting away. And they were so happy because they got to sing their song and vibe out. And so what I feel like being in the Band of Light is all of us, each as individuals, remembering our unique heart song superhero key, and the heart song that unlocks the great cosmic song, and that we're all playing our role in the cosmic symphony of both repair, but then once the repair is done, there's this sort of outward radiance of the phosphorus luminous channel of light that like comes from within and expands outward into the realms. And I feel like being in the Band of Light is we're just on that ride together as individuals with the cosmos. We are inside of the band. You see it as the Band of Light that was like orbiting like a rainbow around the planet, which I drew in my picture of all of the music notes creating this thing, and then the rainbow Band of Light around the planet. I had drawn.
Of course you did.
Yeah. And
of course you did, Mar.
Yeah. This is like the kid. This is like, I want to make the kids out like a whole kids thing out of this. Like there's a thing, you know, and that's what it's like to be in the Band of Light. It's like playing my note, my sweet little note in the ray, and rocking out.
I love you so much. You painted the whole. This is what's so profound about this journey of the Band of Light, is that it's obviously something that a lot of us have seen since we were little kids. Like it's something so much greater than us, and it's something that we're all attuning to. And whether we're seeing it through the lens of this kind of playful, artistic, childlike essence, or whether we're seeing it as like some lofty mission that we're part of. Like wherever we're coming from, we're all a part of this story of banding together and remembering our part in the great symphony. So thank you for that beautiful, apt description. I think that came right out of my own heart as well. So yeah, I appreciate you so much, Mar. Thanks for jamming with me today. And for those of you who are listening, my one prayer of this as we close this podcast is that you go and listen to Marya's music. Go and listen to The Garden. Go and listen to all of these incredible releases that she has hiding in her Spotify and this incredible archive of art. But definitely go check out what's coming next. And I know you're just getting started, and I feel the same. So here's to all the incredible notes that we have yet to sing.
Thank you, E. I love you so much. Thank you for this incredible conversation. It's just such a joy to spend time with you and rap on all of this. I always get so much out of it, and I hope that this is a blessing for everyone to hear, and that it stirs in your heart this song that you're here to co-create with the realms and getting to play your note and yeah, have a relationship with the sparkle that is waiting to sparkle at you.
We'll see you in the band, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And Marya, we'll see you soon.